Well, there you are. Again. Charlie Greer podcast. I do this every day. Today, smoked the joint with George Carlin. Awesome. So yeah, I smoked a joint with George Carlin. This is back in 2004. Of course, George Carlin is a, master. Well, he was. He's passed. He was the comedian master. He was the Zeus, if you will, in my humble opinion. Um, I was working and living in Venice, California. Uh, I worked at Abbott's Habit, which is right on Abbott Kinney, kind of like a main drive, right before it's not on the boardwalk. It's like a couple blocks away. Um, and Abbott's Habit was like a legendary coffee shop. They hung art. I curated the art shows there. I ended up managing the Abbott's Habit that was open on Sunset, but this is before all that, 2004. So I'm working at Abbott's Habit. I lived behind the Abbott's on Electric Avenue. It's like a one way. It's nice. It's even nicer now. And So yeah, I'm working at Abbott's Habit, and there was always a line, literally a line out the door for. They had great sandwiches and danishes and the coffee, and the people that worked there were awesome. But the sandwiches were amazing, fresh. Um, so you get to know people. There's like three or four of us up front, and it's like a war zone. What did I have? And one cool thing about I liked about George was for when he was nice, ask your name, but I think he'd wait in line just like everybody else. A lot of people come in there and they stroll in, they want to cut in line with some of these celebrities. George would wait. Julia Roberts would wait in line, even much as I'm not really a fan of hers, but she was cool. And again, I'm not trying to name drop. This is a story, something that happened in my life. So how I got to know George is I would take his, I think he drank like black coffee. It was something simple, you know. And he would wait. The first time we had any reaction, like I would wait, I wouldn't say anything. It's like, oh my God, George Carlin. You just say, hey, what do you need? Of course, it's George Carlin, but you're not gonna, but he'd come in, a lot of times he just, he was just, you could tell he didn't want to, sometimes he did, he'd want to talk. So there was this woman in front of him that was just being like a Karen, and she paid like a 75 cent, whatever it was, for on like a platinum card. And he right when she walked and stood, he goes, I have a bit about that. That's in my set about people. And she laughed nervously, and I laughed. And he's like, "What's your name?" I said, "Charlie." He's like, "Oh, cool." And he said something about he knew a Charlie or something. Another cool thing about George and certain people is they remember your name. Comes back, "Hey, Charlie," and he'd want me to give him his, because there's other celebrities. I don't even know if you call them celebrities, but people would come in there and cut the line and go up and expect like D-list nobodies like Vincent Gallo or and he's using a fake name. Come on, man. And George Carlin's in line, and Julia Roberts or whoever, and here comes Vincent Gallo with a fake name, button in line. Come on, he's a douche. I mean, I love Buffalo '66, but like in person, you couldn't get through. He was just seemed like he was mentally ill or something. And George would be like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" Nobody knows. Quit being grumpy. Or he would do stupid stuff like sit like the table closest to, and just have this and be staring and have like a weird. I'm talking about Vincent Gallo doing this. Like, man, if George and why can't you be cool? No, So George would be like, hey, Charlie, hey, he'd tell me a joke and whatever. People, of course, are like, George Carlin. So one day. It was not even in the morning. It was probably around because it slowed down a bit, but there was still a lot of people going, And he's like, "Hey, I got this joint," and he pulls out this joint, and I'm like at the counter. Again, it's L.A. Back then, you could just like 2004. If you had a medical card, you could smoke, but basically nobody gave a shit. It's like nobody. And he had this big fat joint. Let's go outside and smoke this joint. And I looked at my, people around working, and I go, I don't even know if my boss was there, because a lot of times the boss weren't there. They kind of let you do what you're going to do. I go, look, fire me or whatever you're going to do. I'm going out here and smoking this joint, and I'm probably due for my break or whatever. So go outside. Of course, everybody else, he invites a bunch of us, but he's talking to me. Get out there, and they had built these like wooden benches Noah, the owner, had these wooden benches so they could take a beating, man. These things were thick, but there's only like 2 seats. He sits down, I sit down, and then we're kind of surrounded by people. There must have been 8 to 10 people. He's holding court. So it isn't like me and George are like alone smoking this J. So he lights up the joint and hands it to me, and then we pass, and then we never see it. I mean, and it was good. It was good. And of course, again, you're not having a conversation one-on-one with George Carlin. Like, he was all over the place. And again, he didn't really look. I mean, he was just, he was holding court. He's having fun. These people are, hey, I guess he lived in the neighborhood. And he was just, he was funny. Every 10 seconds, he was saying something funny. So just as you're kind of like getting over the here comes a nut, something else is funny. And his faces and his expressions, and just a cool dude. But then he got in respect, like right after, I guess when the pot kicked in or something, he kind of got quiet and this and that. And he I'm out of here. He left, walked away. That's something I want to miss about California and LA and Venice. For one, it's probably so expensive to live in Venice. Abbott's Habit is gone. I've heard it's gotten rough. That area kind of comes and goes. It'll be nice. It'll be rough. Like it takes every 5 or 10 years or something. The last time I was down there, I went down to Abbott Kinney, where the Abbott's Habit was. All the surf shacks and everything that was cool, and the sex wax spot, the wax for the surfboards or whatever, and were replaced by these real expensive jeans, like the designer jeans, like $1,000 for a pair of jeans, and models working there, and a bunch of like Karens, or like people that are like going after, like they were protesting the legal marijuana. This was right before I was like, what do you guys protest? All these, like, I don't know who they were. They just seem like angry people. We don't want it. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, again, I don't smoke that much marijuana nowadays, but it's just like, well, see, times have changed. The liquor store across the street from Abbott's Habit, I forgot its name. It was closed. That old liquor store, man, had been there forever. And yeah, it was kind of sad to see that times change. Where I lived back the block behind Electric Avenue, I lived there with my girlfriend. Matter of fact, I was living with my girlfriend because she'd been there since like 90 or 91, 89, whatever. And it was rent control. So she had this like really nice 2-bedroom duplex. There was a hot tub in the back porch. It was awesome. And then celebrities started moving in. What's his name? He played Frodo. I forgot his name. Elijah Wood. Yeah, Elijah Wood. And he was cool, but like he would always remember my dog's name. Like, oh, Possum. I had a dog named Possum. There's Possum, and you are? I'm like, dude, it's Charlie. Oh, that's right. He's always called me Craig. You're Craig and Possum. No, it's Charlie. But he loved my dog. Everybody loved that dog. Possum was like a fan base. But once he moved in and he started changing but he bought this cool little house and kind of built it up, and they just started building these glass, metal, expensive, yeah, sad. All the surf shacks. The only one that was behind our place, across the alley, was literally a surf shack. Like, it was just old wood. They had their surfboards in there. And those dudes were older. They had gray hair. They were, there used to be a lot of those. Not anymore. I bet there's not one anymore. And of course, there's violence, and there's, my girlfriend got jumped by a female gang. Turned out years later, they found out that a real estate adjuster or something, pardon me, had hired the gangs to beat people up so they could move out of their houses. It was like on the news. It was a thing. She got jumped. It used to be so cool. You could walk around. Again, George Carlin would be at the coffee shop. He'd have his newspaper. He would wait in line, which I thought was cool, because we was like, "Oh, come on up, George." He's like, "No, man, I'm not. I'm just like you and him, and I ain't cutting in line. I thought that was really cool because everybody tries to cut in line. And he would just be reading this newspaper. It seemed like he was always reading a newspaper or had a newspaper with him. Cool guy. And I love George. I mean, I grew up, my parents, we watched the first Saturday Night Live. He hosted the first Saturday Night Live, like the original one in the 70s. And they were all excited. Yeah, oh my God. Had friends over and they're drinking Lowenbrow, some kind of 70s beer, you know. And he has to be one of my favorite comedians. I love comedians. I love musicians. I love artists and everything. And comedy is tough to do. People's like, oh, I'll just do comedy. Bullshit. That is rough. These crowds will eat you alive. A small crowd, it's harder than you think. In fact, I think it's one of the. I've never done it. I've hosted comedy nights and stuff. Dude. People think they think, oh, I'll just do comedy. Like some of these actors or whoever, I'll just fall back on comedy. It is brutal. It's not what you think. It's oh yeah. See, I'm gonna no, nope. They'll suck the air out of the room. These crowd, you won't know what. And I'm pretty sure that George came to some of the shows. I was curating the art shows, and what we do is have a group show. And it wasn't a gallery, it was in the restaurant, the coffee shop. And around the walls, we'd have multiple artists. Some are known, some are just people, drawing daisies and whatever, And I curated that. I curated it. I also curated, I was doing both at Venice and LA, and I just couldn't do it. I had to give it to someone else because I couldn't be doing the drive-in, man, from Hollywood to Venice it's tough, especially after you've worked and done all this other stuff. But I remember seeing him some of those nights. We'd put out $2 chuck, some kind of wine, and give out, and of course every artist that's hanging is there with their friend. It was cool. In fact, I miss those days. And I hear that Venice has gotten violent. You cannot go. I mean, sad. Real sad. Used to be able to just walk. We'd go out hey, let's go out and just walk the neighborhood. And of course, it's a small community. Past Robertson. See, Robertson's that like the main drag that encompasses Venice. And there are people, and these people have money and clout and power and movers and shakers that are like, oh no, I haven't passed Robertson in 10 years. I'm like, 10 years? What do you mean you haven't passed Robertson? I just stay here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not passing Rob because after Robinson, Venice gets there's all these apartments. It's on Venice Boulevard. It's kind of tough. It can get tricky. There's gangs. There's you don't want to know. But yeah, I was on an audition, and I lived in Venice. And no, I had moved from Venice. I'd moved to I think Mount Washington. The kind of low level Hollywood Hill, but it's in Mount Washington, it's in Eagle Rock. I was on an audition, and the casting person, she said, I don't cast anybody that lives outside of Robinson, Robinson Boulevard. I'm like, what do you mean? You just huh? You're not going to give it to me because I'm not a local. I used to live here. I worked the Habit. Now, see. You just close the door on a million actors or more, or actresses, everybody. Nope, just that. And there's a lot of artistic actors, painters, everybody. There's a lot of people that live in Venice, or at least have a house, and then they, if you're that rich, you can have a house in Venice. I got one in Bel Air. I got one at, must be nice. But yeah, just walking around, seeing people like George Carlin, half of him offer you a joint. Best times, man. I remember that day was a perfect day. Sunny. Again, a lot of people don't know who these younger people, George Carlin, because I remember he was in and I was talking to him, and I'd always kind of see him come in. I was like, okay. And he wanted me to give his, he'd talk to me, stand there. I'm like, I got to get back to work. Some of these younger people were like, hey, George Carlin. Why is everybody reacting to him? He's just an old man. Like, geez, George Carlin, what do you mean, huh? He didn't give a shit. And yeah, just sitting there, and then he hits the joint. He hands it to me. I pass it on, and it just these. By the time the 10th person, whoever was, because we couldn't, they were like circumference that little bench me and George were sitting on. They just blazed through that. He was like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey!" Oh well, good times. I wonder if George used to walk around and like just go to parties, because that's what you would do. You could just walk around. You could walk down to where the Venice canals are. They have these canals where people, you can like boat around and stuff. These nice little houses. They're probably worth no telling. Um, you get bored and just walk there, and there's always they have a door open. Hey, we're having a party. Come on. Hey, does that even exist anymore? Is it so like rough now that people they need security? Because again, Venice Boulevard gets rough, and then during the lockdown, yeah, that it became like a homeless encampment. Venice Boulevard, the boardwalk, which is one of my favorite places on earth. The boardwalk, I used to love going down there. Then the pizza slices as big as your head, and chintzy stuff to buy, and and seeing all the freaks. I understand why George lived down there, because you're kind of submerged in the arts. I don't care how bad. There's always going to be some artsy kind of stuff. It's Venice. I mean, it's matter of fact, people come to LA, they want to go to Venice, the boardwalk, Muscle Beach, all that other, just at the end of the like north boardwalk, because it keeps going. You could walk up to Santa Monica, down to God knows what. There was a tourist bar that was kind of open. It had like this like ledge, and they'd pull up and it was kind of open. You could see, and people were like, "Oh no, that's," the locals didn't like it because it was for tourists, and they had like deals on Corona, but man, I loved it. One of my favorite things to do is like go around like when the sun's going down, like 6, 7, all the purple and oranges. You can see the beach. The beach is right across the boardwalk. You walk there, and they have for like $10. They have these deals like happy hour, like, hey, you got a bucket of Coronas for $10, and man, I would just sit at the ledge, watch the freaks, because at the end of the boardwalk, people come down. That's where they turn around and go back. Because kind of after that, it kind of just, there's nobody really. People rollerblading, all the stores are concentrated in this like couple block area on the boardwalk. For decades, I mean, that's what I would do. People are like, oh man, you're uncool. Why are you going to go to that place? Let's go to, because there's all these hipster bars in Venice. And I did do that too, but I'd go by myself. Sometimes I'd take my dog. We used to walk possum down on the boardwalk, but then it got violent. People would be walking around with pit bulls, and we almost, a dog fight almost broke out. So I quit taking her down there. I didn't want her to get like ate up by these pit bulls. But there was like the pizza. Man, I missed that pizza. It was really thin. It was a huge slice for $1. Then across the way, down the alley, like not the alley, but the walkway off the boardwalk there was this little hole in the wall. It was like an Indian restaurant. He just had a window. It was small. And I would get these, I forgot what they're called, like these little fritters that had like potatoes and curry and peas. And like, don't make them hot. Like, don't put that. They had this hot sauce that was like, oh my God, it'd blister you, man. So I'd go I'm talking about like once a week forever, go to that corner bar, grab some Coronas with the lime, sit there, watch the sun, wander down to the pizza, get some pizza, grab a bunch of those fritters, head home. One of my favorite things to do in the world was that. I love Venice. I'm lucky I got to live there, because without my girlfriend having that place, without the rent control, they wanted her out of there. And sure enough, they somehow got her out. I don't know what it was. And then they tore down those 2 duplexes and built some kind of humongous, and right before we moved, it was this construction right outside our window. They were building this glass metal kind of thing. It wasn't a mansion, but like this gaudy, nouveau riche kind of, and it was loud. It was like, and on both sides of us, it was just like we were surrounded by all this construction, and like, yeah, and I think she was paying like $750 for that place. which everybody else was paying like thousands, maybe even more, because it was a 2-bedroom and had a big kitchen and it had a back patio and had a garage. And uh, there's no telling what they, because we would sometimes she would like slip up or say like, yeah, I got rent control. I've been here for like almost 15 years. And see, I only pay 7. People are like, why? They get mad. I'm paying 5,000. You go, well, hey, yeah, 5,000 for like a 1-bedroom or just a studio. Who knows? And unfortunately, George has passed. Pray for George. Pray for his family. Bless his heart, man. He um, influenced just a generation, an army of comedians. I mean, this guy was watch one of his HBO specials. Watch his bit about stuff. He's just a genius. He was a genius. And again, every generation has to go through this where it's like, well, back in my day, but man, I'm going to miss those days of being able to just like run into people like that. And we kind of got friendly, like LA friendly, meaning he knew my name. Another thing, people that would ask you your name and remember it. George would do it. He's like, hey, your name's Charlie. Okay. He'd, hey, Charlie. Like he knew my name. Julie Roberts would do it too. You're Charlie. Okay. Hi, Charlie. Like being cool. Waiting in line instead of like cutting up. And then again, a D-list celebrity want to be pushing by it, ordering some kind of, okay, no, the milk ain't frothed enough. I want some more caramel macchiato with the vegan. Huh? What? And just like he was like, these people come in, they look and they sit right there by the crowd. Like they want people, oh yeah, I'm here. They want to be recognized. They want people to see them. But then they kind of have to go, oh no, see, I'm busy here drinking. Come on, man. Drinking your coffee or macchiato, whatever it was. I wonder what is there. I guarantee, pardon me, something has to be, the Abbott's Habit has to be something now. There's no telling what it is. All those places are gone. And I'm sure after these past couple years we've had, is anything there now? I'm sure they're probably just building it back up. Did everybody move? Could you live down there after what happened? The homeless encampment, the boardwalk became like a homeless encampment. I mean, it was bad. I mean, look at the footage of that, man. There's just like, it's sad, man, how things happen. And why they couldn't control that, I don't know. I don't get it. Because Venice used to be really cool. In the late 90s, you started changing, a lot of the gangbangers will hang down there and act like try to sell these burnt CDs, And what they'll do is they'll touch you on the shoulder or something like, hey man, you touched it, you got to buy it. And you drop or whatever. And they kind of surround him. Hey man, I ain't the one. Then that corner they were at, like, so you're walking towards Venice, the boardwalk. There's like, you get down there and they have to take a ride or a lift. I just quit going down to the end where they hung out. Like, man, I ain't going there. Because it was kind of near the end where the Muscle Beach area was. Is Muscle Beach even still there? I knew they were going to do some repairs to it. It was old. Again, that experience, if you guys are ever going to California and going to Los Angeles, you have got to go to Venice Boulevard. You have to. I don't know if anything's still there, though. I don't know if the pizza, it's probably, no telling how expensive it is. It used to be $1, like a huge slice. For decades, it was still $1. Sometimes you have to wait a while because there's a ton of people. It's worth it. It was greasy. I mean, it's just cheese pizza. It's so awesome. I hope so. I hope that that's still a thing. And sometimes in life, it's like, of course, just working at Abbott's Habit was fun. And it was kind of hard for me to get a job there. You had to know somebody. Like they weren't going to let any, and that's another little thing about Venice. Like it's a small little pocket, but once you're in, you're in. And how I got my job, it's like, hey, I live right behind here. I'm on Electric Avenue. Well, bro, you're a local now. Well, yes, I am. This is a funny thing. I shouldn't say this, but and I think I mentioned this in another pod. So I'm dating my girlfriend, and then the owner of Abbott's Habit they had the one in Venice, and then they asked me to, hey, you want to manage the one in Sunset? Of course, you'll have to move. We'll help you out. We know what do you up. And so I said, yeah. And so me and my girlfriend split up, and I'm managing the one on Sunset, and the owner, who again was younger than me too. He had inherited money. He was younger than me. That's kind of but he's cool. Comes up to me and goes, hey, guess who I'm dating? Like, who? Your old girlfriend. Like, wow, it's small world, huh? Yeah. Like, it was like no big deal. Like, oh, well, have fun. That's just LA for you. Like, there was no like anything weird or awkward or mean. It was just like a dad time. Because everybody wanted to date my old girlfriend. Shit. You would too if you saw her. But yeah, good times. I miss those days. I miss George Carlin. When LA was fun. Again, this is like 2004, maybe 2003, 2004. I was painting. I was doing my nudes. I was curating the art show at the Abbott's Habit. I was out of band mode. I wasn't even doing any auditions. Here and there, I might get like somebody throw me an audition, but I was focusing on my painting. And you go to work, and it's fun to work at Abbott's Habit. Like, oh my God, it's busy. You're slammed. I mean, you get burned up by the, because there's this, it was so narrow back there, but there was so many, because it was just a line constantly. You only did like 4 or 5 hours, and the tips were amazing. You made good money. Some people are like, oh, you're a coffee boy at Abbott's Habit, huh? I'm like, dude, I'm making more money. What, oh yeah, you work at Disney. Oh, you got an office job. I'm making more money than you, man. And it's all cash. So you go in there for like a 4 or 5 hour shift. You are, again, when you leave, you've got coffee grinds underneath your shirt, your stain, you've got burn, who knows? But it was fun. And of course, you get all the coffee. They give you a huge sandwich every day. I mean, they fed you. The owners were super cool. The kitchen help. The Oaxacans, the guys that run the kitchen, they nicknamed me El Culiocho. El Culiocho. The fuck is that? That's what they called me. El Culiocho. Was that the Cool 8 or something? What do you, don't make any sense. It's just, I was, matter of fact, after I had not worked there, and I wasn't even working at the one on Sunset. They closed that one. Years later, I went down to Venice. I was meeting friends, whatever, and Abbott's Habit was still open, the one in Venice there. And I'm outside, and I hear El Culiocho, and I look in the back, and there's the dudes. Hey, went over there. Super cool. I'd name names, but I went into them. They didn't want their name. Anyway, but yeah, fun times. The people with the craziest jobs you'd ever imagine, because you're talking to people. I shouldn't say certain things because I'm getting doxxed. See? This one woman would come in. I think I could say this. This woman would come in, and she had like this. It would look like a nice, like a small, like suitcase, or whatever. And she'd give out her cards, and she was, I swear this is true, and only in LA could do this, a blowjob instructor. Like, what? And she had dildos in there, and she had pamphlets, and you would hire her for like, have a party or have your friends over, girlfriends, and she would teach these women how to give oral sex. She was super funny and cool. And when she was telling us, like right on the counter around the corner, there was like where they get the cream and coffee and everything. There was a table. She's like, oh yeah, go. And she threw down that suitcase and opened it up. And it was just, and she had here's the information. Here's my card. Here's my pamphlet. Here's the, wow. That's crazy. And of course, every guy's hitting on her. She was older and she was good looking, but all these surfer, hey, you want to go out sometime? She's like, how many times I've heard that? You're not the only one that had. And I go, how do you go about doing this? She's like, well, it's kind of like a Tupperware party. You have to hire me, and her rates were, it was, she's making a living. Shit, she lived in Venice. There's no telling who, oh, we're having a party. Guess what we got? A blowjob instructor. I guess if you move elsewhere, having that on your resume, I mean, I don't know. So tell me about yourself. What do you do? Well, see, Could you, like, especially where I'm at now in Illinois? I don't think that'd fly. I don't know. Maybe you have to drive to Chicago or St. Louis to uh, strange, mysterious world we live in. But I miss those days. I miss George Carlin. I miss the Abbott's Habit. I miss the whole, just fun. Just, yeah, everybody has to work and everything. Everybody's kind of, doing this and that. It's busy. It's this, it's it. But man, I'm glad I had to have those experiences. Because if I do get down, if I do something in my life, I can always remember, like, hey, I smoked a joint with George Carlin. And life ain't that bad. I've had a good life. I'm gonna miss George. R.I.P. George. Love you, man. Shit. It's gonna happen to everybody though. I do this every day. Like, share, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, it's in the description. There's information for Zelle. I do this every day. I'll be back tomorrow. I love y'all. Be blessed. Cheers.